Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Girl Dad Show. Today, I have Ryan on the show today from working at companies like Apple and then starting his own startups, including Weatherline and now Flighty, which is one of my favorite travel apps that I just talked about in my last Girl Dad Talk. I'm very, very excited to have Ryan here today. Thank you so much for joining, Ryan.
Hey, Young, good to see you, man. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm good. I was just joking with you earlier, but it's kind of fun to finally get this show going because we've been trying so hard to get you scheduled.
Yeah, classic dad entrepreneur vibes going on already,
That's
right?
right. You're a busy man. You're a busy man. Talk to me. Like, what's been going on?
Man, we had a crazy November, December. My wife got COVID, and we decided to go, for some reason, I don't know. We decided to go full bore, isolate. Let's just remove the risk of the kids getting it. So my mom moved in. Katie, my wife, went in total isolation for 10 days. We did the like over the top isolation. So it was just co-parenting with my mom, which is his own thing. And the girls are like, why is mom in that room? And why are we wearing masks and staying far away from them? And that was something else. Then through that, Rosie, our dog, got pneumonia.
Oh, wow.
And then what was it? There was one other thing that happened that week. Oh, you'll like this. I got out of nowhere, just from the sky, $150,000 bill from the IRS claiming that I messed something up on my taxes in 2021. So it's like, what is happening?
Are you serious?
Yeah, and it appears to be a legitimate, complete error on their side, and we're like full in this like crazy process of like their internal review being trying to understand what this even came from. But I've spent $5,000 on forensic tax people being like, I don't know what this is, and no one at the IRS has any idea what it is, which I guess is semi comforting that I might not have to pay it, but it's still kind of jarring.
Absolutely. You know what's really like crazy? I actually got something similar.
I've
Like,
heard from one other person that did.
yeah, I got like, well, they literally leaned on my account and they like put it to the point we've sent you multiple notices, and I'm like, I haven't got a single notice. And they put a lien on my checking account, and I had to call because like it was literally stopping money from coming in.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Mine
it was
was
like blocked. It was like they were like, "Oh, we can't deposit money." I called the bank. They're like, "There's a lien, the government lien on it." And I'm like, "What?" So I called the number, and they're like, "You owe $7,000. If you don't pay it today, we won't unlock your account." And I'm like, "But I need it to like live. Like I need it to like. You're not even letting money come in. Like I don't know." And so I paid them $7,000, and I immediately called my accountant, and he's like, "They're wrong. They're
it's so
absolutely wrong."
that's so
Yeah.
similar. Yeah, mine got issued on, they claim, December 26th, 2021, and I never got anything in the mail. And then you call them and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can't send it again. We don't have a digital record of it, and I'm not allowed to read to you over the phone what it's for." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, what am I supposed to do now?" So
Oh my gosh.
it's been ridiculous.
That is
But it appeared,
ridiculous, but that's crazy that it happened to me too. I mean, obviously not at the amount that you're talking about, but very similar sequence of events. Like literally happened to me on November.
yeah, we have like a 60-day stay on them putting a lien on the house. It's like it's so stupid.
It's so stupid. Yeah, and that's crazy. That's wild. Yeah. So you've had a really rough Q4. It sounds like.
Yeah, it was tough, dude.
Other than that,
But
how's the holidays?
pretty good. Yeah, Christmas was good. So I have two girls. Addison's 3. Carter is 6 months old. So the 3-year-old I think was kind of special. Last time she was 2 and it was a little. She wasn't really registering it, and this time was just. So she's the first, I guess, granddaughter, if you will, in our extended family. So she just gets like completely rained on with presents for Christmas, and it was just all out. So that was fun. Just to like, yeah, I put a bunch of lights on the house, stuff I normally like wouldn't do. It's just fun because she loves it so much. So
Yeah, giving
it's
her the
fun to make.
experience. Yeah, I feel like I'll just say this as a dad, like maybe a couple years ahead of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I will tell you, man, they get way more fun for the dad as they get older because like
Interesting.
they're starting to like banter and they like the jokes that dads do, and like my wife's very nurturing and kind of a parent, and I'm like I kind of poke fun at them and like make jokes and like
Mm,
tease them and like trick them and do things that they think are funny, right? And so
yeah.
it's so enjoyable, man. Like my kids are so hilarious, and they just make me laugh so much, and I can already tell that it's going to only get funnier like as they get older because like they legit like think it's hilarious, and they can start now bantering and playing
Yeah.
tricks and stuff and enjoying in those games. So a lot to look forward to in that sense. But do you mind if we talk a little bit about Flighty just before we get into the kid stuff? Because I usually like to
Yeah.
talk about what people do for a living, and I know I introduced you, but I'd love it if you could share a little bit about what you're working on and any big projects and things that you have for Flighty.
Yeah,
And by
sure.
the way, I did a travel episode for the last Girl Dad Talk, and I talked about Flighty. And I said,
Amazing.
yeah, it's one of my travel hacks. Yeah.
I must not have gotten to it yet. I'm like 30 minutes into the last show, so I might have missed it so
Oh,
far.
it hasn't come out yet. So the next,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, oh no, no, it just came out. It just came out. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so Flighty is like a personal flight tracker. So it's for your Delta, American, United flights. And the number one thing that people love about it is that we give you your delay and cancellation and gate change alerts before anybody else does. So when things kind of start going awry, you're always the first person to know if you need to make changes to your flights or travel plans. And then a lot of times there's a little bit of like an unspoken thing I'm still trying to capture in the marketing of just knowing what's going on. Because airlines, their incentive is for you to be sitting at the gate, quiet and doing nothing as early as possible, right?
Right.
And ours is tell you everything as fast as possible and as much as you can. So we do fancy stuff like tracking your inbound plane for 25 hours before it gets to be your plane, so we can tell you, hey, it's in Florida, it's not going to make it to Texas on time. I don't care what United says, like your plane's an hour late, and all kinds of fancy stuff like that. I'm excited for this year. We just got back from Mexico City. We did a retreat with the team doing 2024 road mapping, and we're going to go really hard on foundational data type stuff, and then just trying to extend the lead in terms of really gnarly delay and cancellation prediction stuff we do. So that's kind of where we're at.
Dude, that's awesome. So when you talk about foundational data stuff, what are you talking about? Like just like gathering all the like the
Yeah.
data, just like deep data stuff to like start figuring out like forecasting better?
Yeah. So imagine everybody thinks, as usual, when you're not familiar with an area, that you just subscribe to an API and you get, oh, okay, now we get like all the flight data for free and it's always correct and there's no gaps in the coverage and there's no conflicts where United says it's delayed, but Newark says it's on time. But of course, it's a complete just mess like that. So think about it kind of like a web, and maybe on one axis you have all the airlines, and then on the other you have all the airports, and you have to get if you get an agreement with United, then you kind of have all the airports that they fly through, and if you get an agreement with this airport, then you kind of know more than beyond United at that airport. So you're trying to build this web of having complete coverage, and there's middlemen, and we use a couple of them to try to get as much coverage as we can. So we're 5 or 6 years in at this point, and one of the things that we're feeling is that their incentives are not the same as ours. They
Hmm.
make a ton of their money from selling this data back to airlines, which is kind of gnarly. I think
Yeah.
uh,
Why wouldn't
people
the
don't
airlines
know.
have that data themselves?
Yeah, people don't know this. So
That's
if you,
wild.
so United, they're actually a decent one. Let's say American. American doesn't really track all their planes and know where they are all the time. They just
Are
pay
you
one of these
serious?
guys. They just pay one of these guys to tell them where it is, because
It's
if they
cheaper?
just track, I don't, I don't think so. Because if they track all their planes, it's only, I don't know, 50% of the picture. They need to know where all the other planes are too. They need to know where Americans and Uniteds and JetBlues and what's the
Oh,
airport
got it.
status. Is the
Yeah.
airport overloaded? So they, and like, okay, we have great tracking in the US, but our planes go outside of the US. So these kind of middlemen have come up selling the data back to airlines. And they also sell to like Boeing and aircraft manufacturers. And it's like
Yeah.
big time enterprise contracts. And then
Yeah.
we're here trying to we want like gate change information, which an airline, they don't care about at all.
Yeah.
So it's not really in the API in a way that we get a push notification. So there's a lot of foundational stuff that they're not really incentivized to make better. And it's only going to help us if we can kind of build our own data pipeline, right? Like if we're sitting on top of
Totally.
someone else, we're
Totally.
kind of limited.
So
to a certain extent.
you're going vertical integration. You're basically potentially going to actually be a data source then, your own data source.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I hope we don't have to go that far, but we might
Yeah.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah. I will tell you right now, and just for all the listeners out there, it's one of my favorite apps.
Thank
I
you,
mean,
man.
I should like you just because you're awesome, but I will tell you that I like you even more because your app is awesome. But I use it so much. You
Thanks.
know, as a consultant, I travel so much, and travel has gotten so bad in the last 2.5 years. I would say that, you know, in the last 2.5 years, I easily say 30%, probably more, of my flights have either been canceled or, I'm sorry, delayed or even canceled. And it's gnarly, dude. Like, it's gnarly trying to figure out how to get rescheduled because there's no availability. There's no staff. There's no pilots. There's like people. It's just unbelievable to travel these days, and it's so hard. And I just will say that, like, it's a lifesaver to have that data that comes in faster than the airline, so you can start quickly making those adjustments. Is
Did you
that
see
me?
the This is me. Did you see
Oh,
the thing we released for like the year in review? You can see your exact percentages. My all time is 41% of my flights have been delayed
oh, really?
for a
Oh, I
total of
haven't.
152 hours of delays that I've
Oh
endured
my
in my
gosh.
full life.
I've had 58 hours of delays. That's
Ugh.
awesome. This is so cool. Look at that. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Tap on it. You can go deep and get all kinds of stuff. See
Oh,
which airline is
wow.
your worst. JetBlue has hosted me for 28 hours in my life, which is insane.
American Airlines has taken 16 hours of my life. Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
So I was right. It was over 30%. It
yeah.
was
You're right.
44%.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
And
That's wild.
the historical number that they talk about is 20%, but they of course juice the numbers. They give a 15-minute grace
Grace
period. So like
period.
if they're 14 minutes late, it's like, ah, it's not late. That doesn't count. It's like, what are you
Oh my gosh, I
talking
want to
about?
go
Like,
through all these reports. I didn't even know this existed. This is so cool.
yeah, there's
I love it. That's awesome, man.
good.
And so as you think about, wait, did you bring your kids and family to Mexico when you did the offsite?
No, we're talking about it for the next one.
I've
Didn't
been
do this one.
I've been bringing my kids to work trips.
Yeah,
It's
I
been
want
kind
to.
of
Six
gnarly.
months. 6 months is pretty young, but I think
It's
when she
hard.
gets a little
Yeah.
older, yeah,
Yeah, 6 months is hard. I took my 4-year-old to a pool conference a couple months ago in November, and it was hard. I'm not gonna lie.
that's a tough balance, dude.
It was hard, yeah, but it was also awesome. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, when I travel for work, I'm always like 60% of the time, I'm like, maybe even 70%. I wish there was a Flighty app for my time spent when I travel, but I spend like 70% alone, you know, eating by myself in my room. I'm just like, God, I wish my family was with me. And so this time I just brought her with me. I brought one of my kids with me, and it was like epic,
That's
you know?
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, she went to the conference floor. Who cares, right? Like, everyone thinks she's way more cuter than me, right? So they all want to talk to her. It's so random to have this young kid.
It's a marketing tactic, yeah.
Totally, yeah. It's like a mascot, and then just like brought her into all my meetings, and just gave her, you know, Paw Patrol, and you know, she watched Paw Patrol. I took my meetings, and all the other people were like, "You can do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I did. Are you okay with it?" They're like, "Dude, I should bring my kid next year." And I'm like, "Yeah, you should."
Kids start playing together. That's
I
awesome.
know, seriously. I may have started a trend for the pool conference. All these pool guys just gonna come and bring their kids and rocking out with
Yeah,
it. But
it is. I mean, it's kind of depressing, but it is also kind of cute. Addison she has a Mac keyboard that she kind of carries around. She's like, I'm doing work like daddy. It's like, man, that's kind of depressing,
oh
but it's cute.
wow, that's
And then
awesome.
she'll come and sit at the computer and like play and move her hands because my team is all remote, so it's a lot of
Do you have
doing
structured time when you work, or how does she know that?
it. Because my office is home since COVID, and
Yeah,
that was in the office with the door closed. Yeah,
yeah. And so
yeah,
she just knows that you're on the computer doing this.
yeah.
And so
It's
she role models you. But
yeah,
like, keep look at me, I'm dad.
yep.
That's
And
brilliant.
she'll say like, I'm mommy, I've got to do work right now," and she'll take the keyboard and like go sit on the couch, which is depressing but hilarious. It's like, oh my
That is
god.
very funny. That is very
I
funny.
hope
Why is it depressing? Because you don't want her to
that's
acquaint
like
you with that?
she's clearly mirroring something that I do often, like leaving a family event and saying, I got to go do work right now. Like that is
Yeah.
depressing.
That is depressing in some ways, but who's gonna put money on the table, man? You gotta make work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
No? Tell me. Talk to me about it.
No, I agree with you. I totally
Yeah.
agree.
What's your balance on that? How are you thinking about that? Are you going to try to change that at all, or?
Yeah, I need to think more deeply about it. If I'm being honest, I you know, between COVID and the business being pretty new and the two girls kind of back to back, but not really. I've mostly been in survival mode for a couple of years with parenting stuff. I need to get more articulate about like what are the weaknesses and what I think I should work on. We started doing that. We have a whiteboard in our master
Mm.
bedroom, and we just
Hmm.
like write. It's not like KPIs. It's not that douchey of a thing, but it's like what do I think each of the girls needs to work on, and myself for like parenting. So it's nice to have it written up there. It's basic stuff, but
Wait, no, you need to double click. Why is there a whiteboard in your bedroom?
yeah.
Tell
So
me
it
what.
started. It started because so this second kid around, we had a night nanny,
Yeah.
and it's just tough passing information between people. So it started with like, hey, Carter needs, like, if she doesn't go to bed or start bedtime by 5, it's a disaster. It's like, you have to do that.
Yeah.
And just between all of us juggling, stuff would get lost. So we just started writing like 4 Addison and 4 Carter. Here's the 3 or 4 things. Or we were supposed to be working on tummy time, and just nobody was doing it. Everybody thought the other person was doing it. So I was like, all right, that's it. Get the whiteboard. And it
And what
just
did your wife
evolved.
say when you got the whiteboard
I had to ask permission. I had to ask permission.
out? I don't know if I could pull that off. My wife would like legit like strangle me. She'd be like, "That's ridiculous."
Yeah.
You know what I've been really looking into is the digital boards, like those DAC boards. Have you seen
Mhm.
those? Where you can like
I've seen a
centralize
little bit.
calendars, and then you can put like grocery lists and to dos, and you
Yeah.
can like move little widgets around. I really want one of those, but my wife's old school, man. She's like she wants it on like a paper calendar and like.
That's what my wife is. She's a
Oh,
paper calendar.
really?
I forced her to we have a kids calendar that we share that kids activities go on, which is amazing. I have to have it. It's nice to see it overlaid with work stuff. But beyond that, she has a paper old school calendar.
Yeah. And so if you have this whiteboard and now you're for tactical reasons, but now you're starting to map out what that means. What is it? What have you first scratched out? What's the first batch of thoughts that you put in there?
Oh man. I'm kind of in this, I don't know if this is exactly answering your question, but I'm kind of in this phase of I need to better understand like what are the key things I need to work on with a 3-year-old. And I know the basics, like right, like we're doing letters and being polite and saying thank you, and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I haven't dug into like key frameworks or like what do the learning experts think about this kind of stuff? What are the most important things to
Mm.
learn? Have you gone down that road?
My wife has a lot. She does a lot of research into this stuff, and so it's totally a cop out for me because she does so much research. I just feel like I don't need to, and so I just don't.
Yeah.
But she's constantly like saying, "Oh, we need to do these types of activities so that they can like work on these cognitive skills."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, great!" And she's like, "I read these 2 books. And I listened to this podcast. You should listen." I'm like, "Sure." And then I like never listen to it, right? And so, I'm like, someone is so focused on it, I just feel like I can get away with it. So I feel like you're like busting me out here because my wife listens to the show, so she's gonna know that I never listen to those shows, but they she does a lot of this stuff where she like researches it, and then now more recently she talks to a lot of other moms that have kids that are just a couple years older than us, so she kind of has like a
Yeah.
mastermind group around it now versus like
Hmm.
I'm trying to relate it to business terms here,
Yeah.
so she went from like buying courses and watching YouTube videos to now having a mastermind group, and so she switched from that level to this level.
It's funny. I'm kind of on the same path as her. With business stuff, I guess just growing up with the internet, our instinct, or I'll speak for myself, my instinct a lot of times, oh, I need to learn how to do whatever, like social media marketing a little bit. All right, let's go read about it online.
That's
Like
right.
watch some videos, take some courses. And man, you just learn so much more by finding someone and talking to them. It's just insane. So I feel like it's the exact same thing. My mom, my parents live close by, so and Katie's are further away, so she's around more often, and I'll ask her this kind of stuff, and she's like, I don't know, what are the other parents doing? And it's just such
Mm.
an interesting. she doesn't even, because she parented and grew up in the world where she's like, you find people in your neighborhood that are about the same age group.
Yeah.
Some are little, some have brothers and sisters older, some have younger, and everybody just shares and you figure stuff out. And it is weird how that's like, I don't know, some sort of brilliant parenting hack to talk to other parents.
No, it's not. I mean, yeah, it's so crazy that we don't do that more, right? But it's like it's the same thing in business. Like actually agree with you. Like I'm at the point now where obviously I have the financial ability to do it too, where it's just like I just pay people to teach me now. You know what I mean? It's just like, because it's like same thing as you. It's just like so much faster just to get the data that I need in business, right? And just like fed into my brain. Like I find a function expert and I just buy that data and that from that person. And I think that's like the highest level of like education for me, at least, and my brain can process it better. And I guess if I was primarily responsible for kind of articulating what the activities are and kind of like their cognitive abilities, I would probably do the same thing as that. But
Yeah.
I was actually more asking like more just like generically, like are you thinking about like not just like how to be like not teaching them the academic stuff, but just like as a dad, are you thinking about what that means to like work a lot versus like spend time with them? Like, have you been thinking about that side at all?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even before kids. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, it was a part of a huge amount of pressure with Flighty was I knew, I felt like, and I guess I was correct. I knew that if whatever I started at that time didn't work, I would be restarting with kids that were young. So I felt this immense pressure to like get it going. I've got like 1 or 2 years to get this thing going because we're going to start having kids. And then after that, I'm just not going to have the bandwidth or the time or really want to do it as much.
Hmm.
So it was a huge part of just like big life planning, right? And it kind of worked out well. Wasn't so great there for a year and a half when nobody was flying during COVID, but it was definitely a thing I thought about up front. And now that they're like, I feel like I'm transitioning out of this just survive mode. You know, Carter just hit 6 months, so she sleeps a decent amount, and we're kind of out of that insane 0 to 4 month time
Yeah.
period.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Flighty, really good last couple years. I feel like it's out of the must be all hands on deck at all times so that the ship doesn't sink kind of mode. I feel like I'm this year. I definitely need to be more articulate and thoughtful about that. To be honest, I haven't done it yet.
Yeah. That's awesome,
I
man.
do the like take her to school every day.
Yeah.
Stop work at 4 and eat dinner together and that kind of stuff. But I do want to be even more certain and like specific about it. I don't know. What did you do?
I love it, man. You're like at the cusp. It's so fun to talk to someone, a parent that's like just at the cusp of figuring this stuff out. I pinged around a lot, so I've made two massive shifts. Right, the first shift was the first 5 years was how can I spend as much time with my kids as humanly possible, and so I optimized my work into systems as fast as I possibly could, and so I can systematically like walk away from things as quickly as I could. And I spent the first like 5 years just very present. I attended, all sorts of extraneous things and probably an excessive amount of like kid stuff. And then it completely switched because, my dad wasn't very present. He was always building businesses. And so I kind of, just kind of saw him always working and he was always building and trying to make something. And then he would either fail it or it didn't work and he would move us, and then we moved around a lot because he was just a businessman. He would just keep trying to grow, and then eventually he made it. But um um 4 or 5, my Lily comes up to me and you know she says, "Dad, are we rich?" And my wife starts freaking out, right? And I'm like just staring at her, just trying to process what she's saying. And my wife's like, "Who asked you that? Why are you asking that? Who said that? Like, why? In what context? What setting? What?" Like she's like wailing, wailing with all these questions. And I just look at her, and like all I can think of is that Shaq quote, right? Where I saw a TikTok with Shaq saying this, so I repeated it back to her. I'm like, "Mommy and Daddy are rich, you're poor." And that's what I said to her, right? And it was funny in the
Man,
moment,
that's
but
good.
yeah, thank you. And then I immediately switched my mentality. And so now I don't attend everything. And then I show her me working late sometimes, not all the time, but I
Huh.
show her that I have to sacrifice to, to work hard. And because no matter what I say to her, she's watching what I do, not listening to what I say as much. Or I actually think
That's
she's watching me more than she's listening. Does that make sense?
yeah.
And obviously Grace is now older and she's now 5 years old, and so same thing, right? I want them to grow up knowing that there's a lot of sacrifice that comes to building a lifestyle that you want, right? And so I was accidentally teaching her the wrong thing because I was trying to do something that was opposite of what I thought I wanted when I was growing up. But because my dad showed me what entrepreneurship looks like, what hard work looks like, it taught me entrepreneurship and hard work. I just
Mhm.
I just had a chip on my shoulder about it until my kid turned 5, right? And now I love my dad. I mean, I've always loved my dad, but I have a mad level of respect for him
Yeah.
because think about how many. I'm sure he wanted to spend more time with me, but he chose to like build a business so that I could have a better life, right? It's like I don't know. There's something to that, right? And so there's a balance to it. And so I don't think I have the right answer either, Ryan. But
Yeah.
that's the stages that I've switched over to. And so since a year and a half ago, and Lily turned 5, and she made that comment, I have now tried to balance how much time I spend with them. So it was like maximum amount of time, and I think she asked because like sometimes parents don't come to things, they don't come to like the all the award ceremony, like there's just stuff that's very superfluous, and sometimes parents don't come. And then
Yeah.
not only does Amy come and she doesn't work, I also come to everything. So like she's kind of like wondering how is it possible that like both of my parents are at every single thing that I do. And so I'm assuming that's where she got the question from. But hopefully that helps you on your discovery process.
Yeah, that's interesting. You kind of went backwards.
I
You
did.
and most people overwork and then are like midlife crisis. Oh my God, they can't get these years back and go the
Yep.
other way.
Yeah, but the problem is that like these kids are listening and watching everything you do, and it doesn't matter what you say to them, they're watching and listening. And so if you're at the baseline not role modeling the type of human you want them to be like, uh, they're not going to listen to you. They're going to do
Yeah.
what you're role modeling. It doesn't matter what you spew out of your mouth. If your actions don't match it, they're going to do what your actions say, and they're going to call you out on it because they're watching. They're literally watching, and they're molding their barometers and their benchmarks off of who you are as a human being. And it's super important to like just keep that in mind as you start to grow, because you're depressed that your kids knows you as a keyboard jockey, and like and discounting your wife to say, hold on, let me finish this email. And you think it's funny, but it's depressing. But there is some merit to the fact that you're also teaching her, that there are important things, that have to take precedence over something else. So for whatever that's worth, I'm not telling you to keep
Yeah.
doing that, but just don't beat yourself up too much is my piece of advice. We're all figuring it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's helpful. I appreciate that. And
Yeah,
like her with the keyboard, they definitely mirror and mimic and just watch everything.
totally. How did you grow up, by the way? Talking about co-parenting with your mom, like I want to know how that's going and what the good and bad is
Yeah.
co-parenting with your mom. But how did you grow up? How were your parents like with you raising? It sounds like they just kind of figured it out as well.
Yeah, it's funny. So one, having kids myself has been super instructive on seeing the choices they had to make. And two, I do group therapy, so it's with just people I don't know outside of life or outside of normal life. And seeing one of the most valuable things I've gotten out of that is, of course, you talk about childhood and upbringing. And I feel like I have this library of seeing how different people grew up. And before that, I just assumed everyone was like mine. Like you just don't know any better. You're like, well, of course, everybody's dad was working all the time and or whatever.
Yeah.
So to actually answer the question, um, very white middle class suburbs. We grew outside of Houston, just like grew up in an area called the Woodlands,
Yeah.
which is pretty, I would say like overly manicured. So it's definitely isolated from crime and
Yeah.
racism and a lot of that kind of stuff. I just, everything was kind of good, you know?
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of that part later in life. Um, I do think So a lot of people that grew up there give it like a bad rap for not being the real world or whatever. And I kind of think the opposite. I think it showed me that I just didn't have a lot of the, oh, other people are racist. Why is that? Or other people are dealing drugs. That's weird. Like a lot of that stuff wasn't around. I kind of got a idyllic look at things, um, and then kind of filled it in intellectually of like, oh, okay, that makes sense to me. So I guess in a really broad sense, I just had a good like community model, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense.
Um, yeah,
Totally makes sense.
parenting wise, it was super traditional. My dad worked. He would go to work at like 4 a.m. so he could come home at 3 p.m. kind of. He just went to work really early, but did the
Oh, that's
typical
great that he
40
could
hour.
do that though. That's awesome.
Yeah, he was a little later in his career. My dad was like 40 when he had me, or when they started having kids. He's 11 years older than my mom, so it's kind of a weird gap. And my mom intended to go back to work, but did the like took me in the car to daycare and was like, nope, not doing this, can't do it, and just called work and said I'm never coming back. And
Oh wow.
then I have a younger brother and a younger sister, so she was like 100% gave up her life to parents. Just and she's parenting style wise, she is, and still lifestyle wise, she's she's to the point and direct and on the scale of strictness, like one notch below maximum strictness.
Oh, I
It
love
was
it.
a pretty like regimented. You do your homework. If you didn't get A's, why didn't you get A's? If you're not, you got to be nice to your friends. If you weren't nice to your friends, you go over there and apologize to them. Like very, um,
Structured.
yeah, for sure.
She would have been a good CEO.
She probably still would be, yeah, man. She can't do anything without getting involved. Like she was always on the PTA president, and they just moved into a new community out in Driftwood, and she's already on the board. It's like that, yeah, that kind of stuff.
I love it. So did you get some of that from her or?
Definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yeah. I feel like I learned the emotional side, like the emotional dimension of life and friends and family, a little later. Um, she's a little more on the logical side of things, and my
Hmm.
dad is too. So I feel like that piece, me and my brother and sister have talked about it. For us, that came a little bit later of um, like, oh, how does that make me feel, and why
Yeah.
does that make me feel that way, and am I okay with that? That was a little later. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's been part of the part of the reason I started in therapy and then now in group therapy, and has been super helpful in terms of just developing like a emotional IQ that I feel like was a little bit of a missing piece. But
Yeah.
all things considered, I mean, sometimes I'll stay in group therapy, like someone will bring something up, and people have had overcome insanely incredible things.
Yeah.
I just look at him and I'm like, oh my God, you are so much more resilient and strong than like A, you realize, or B, I think I could even survive, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like so the therapist, the leader person will say, Brian, can you relate to that? Or like, how does that relate to your upbringing? And I'm like, it doesn't. Like, I just had a really good upbringing. So
Yeah.
it's been a nice uh, realization that, that I had while both my parents are alive, and I can thank them and talk to them about it.
Yeah, it's also awesome that you're going to therapy to just kind of like get that context and kind of get exposed to different like lives and experiences. That's awesome. And then, and how does your wife go to therapy as well, or is she more like you, or is she more like the opposite? Like, is it opposites attract, or is it like minds together?
It's I'll halfway give myself credit for this. We met in college,
Yeah.
and I'm a pretty logical, unemotional person, especially was then. I feel like I've gotten better now. But I guess either intuitively or subconsciously or something, I knew if I marry someone who's in engineering classes with me and we're both like robots at intellectual like study stuff, I just will never develop as a person. So definitely looking for someone more on the loose, emotional, kind of artistic spectrum, and that's exactly what my wife is. She's super emotionally in tune. Um, is an artist who paints and draws, and um, yeah, is definitely the emotional center of the family. And it's interesting to see, like, she'll come downstairs and say, um, Addison she got out of her bed. She's not sleeping in bed, and she's sleeping by the door because we have a rule that she has to stay in her room. But the door can be open, so sometimes she'll sleep right on the entryway. And Katie will come down and say she's sleeping on the floor, but I do think she's like emotionally going through something.
Mm-hmm.
You were out of town for a week, so kind of take it easy on her. Because my instinct is to go up and use logic and say, the bed is more comfortable. Why don't you lay in the bed? And I wouldn't really pick up on the fact that, like, she actually is going through something emotional. So it's an interesting like yin and yang that we have.
Yeah, that's great. She's teaching you. She's
Yeah, they all are.
exposing
That
you.
is 100% true. Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, this is too much of like, oh my God, how much I've grown emotionally. But 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been like, what are you talking about? She's going through something. Like, I
Yeah.
got home. I got home safely, and I'm safe, and I'm home. Like, get back in bed. So it's been, yeah.
That's awesome, man. That makes me happy to
In
hear that. And
in a
and
different world, where I married someone super logical and we had two boys, I would
yeah.
be like running a boot camp over here. It would be depressing.
I will say that for whatever it's worth, our house is very similar. So hope that makes you
Yeah.
feel a lot better. Yeah. Amy's constantly coaching me and forewarning me. Not warning is not the right word, but just kind of giving me a heads up. Like, there's something wrong. And I don't know if it's school or maybe something happened at gymnastics, but she's feeling very emotional. She's very touchy right now. So just be very gentle. And then so she'll give me the heads up, and it's like, I honestly don't even know. Like, I don't even know what she's talking about, And so I just say, okay, cool. And then I don't, you know, really, I don't really change my behavior, but when she does like start crying or lash out or do something that's unnormal, I try to have a lot more patience and empathy for it in those instances. But, um, for whatever it's worth, I hope it makes you feel a little bit better. I think a lot of us are like that. We're just like, still learning how to do that and read it. And then I will tell you, I've interviewed quite a few girl dads that are way farther along than us, but I heard it gets more complicated. So just
Yeah.
so you know what to look forward to.
Yeah. I'm curious
Yeah.
about that because to me, this stage is hard. Like
Yeah.
this is going to sound brutal, but like a lot of the stuff she wants to do or she wants to interact with me about, it's like, I can engage for 5, 10 minutes. And after that, it's just, oh my gosh, like I can't do this thing over and over time, or I'm
Yeah.
just exhausted. Like I've been working all day, I'm exhausted.
That's right.
So I think naively, ignorantly, 100%, that
Yeah.
when the when the difficult times are more intellectual and emotional, and I can talk to her and like we can have a conversation back and forth. For some reason, I think that's going to be easier, but I just keep hearing over and over that it's not. So I probably need to recalibrate that.
Yeah. I think it is easier. I think it is easier on the side of, well, at least I don't know what it is either, because I'm talking about when they're teenagers, but
Yeah.
like right now it's a lot easier to have fun with them, but it's also a lot harder to just like talk to them about stuff when they're not feeling good.
Yeah.
And my wife is like, I mean, they don't even try when they're upset. They don't even come to me. Like, it's literally like they like run past me and push me aside to go to my wife and hug her, and then and they'll just hold each other for a few minutes and cry, and then eventually my wife will like figure out a way to like get them to talk about it, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just know. They don't even come to me. It's kind of sad, actually. Like, I'm not their source of emotional support yet, and so I haven't figured that out, and I don't know how to do it. Yeah.
She's probably also the default parent too, so it may be a lot that, right? It's
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, thank you for giving me that giving me that little consolation prize. But it's something that I want to work towards, because when I think about like why I work so hard, and like, and I think about like being a better version of my dad, like my dad, did the best that he could, and he, tried to be a better dad than his dad. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think about it and I'm like, what success looks like for me is like having kids that like want to come hang out with me when they're older. you know I want kids that are like, oh man, I can't wait to bring my kids around, my dad, so that the grandkids are partying it up with me, and my kids can talk to me. And I just want to be really good about evolving from parent to friend as I get older with them. And especially as in Asian culture, that doesn't really happen. So I really want to combat and beat that. I want to knock that obstacle down, because I think that
Yeah.
most Asian families struggle with that last. They're so good in the first two, right? The first two stages, training you how to wipe your butt and wash your hands, and like, giving you like the diligent orders and structure. The Asians are really good
Yeah.
at that, right? And then, the second part's really good too, like the nurturing, helping you develop, and like exposing you to like different things so you can like excel at stuff, right? And like pushing you and coaching you and empowering you. But
Yeah.
they're typically really bad at like the last part where you're now an adult, and they still have that hierarchy. And so it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but I'm not friends with my dad. Let's just say it that way. He's definitely the dad, and he's definitely he's definitely like the patriarch. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's the
And
culture is just so interesting.
yeah, and so I really want to, my upgrade, I think, is going to be that, I'm going to try to like really combat that, because I think it's important, man. I think it's really important. And I talk to so many people that are successful now, and I've just been actively networking with, affluent people, because I want to be one. Excuse me. Almost all of them have said, like, at the end of the day, like, none of it really matters, right? It's just like the relationships that you have, and who you're communal with, and it kind of goes back to this whole concept of like what you just said, your woodlands, the community that you're in,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good.
idyllic as it sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have great, people will talk about, oh man, high school was the worst. I don't want to go back to high school. And I'm like, ah, I thought high school was awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
I want to go back to high school. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is an interesting. I like that.
Huh. Cool. I'm glad that we had
Well
this
said.
conversation. Hey, let me switch
Yeah, well
gears a little
said.
bit, because I want to be mindful of your time, and I do want to ask you some questions that I ask every guest. Now, as a father for 3.5 years, do you have any sage advice to give soon-to-be parents?
Oof. Soon to be parent stage advice. I refuse to say the age-old thing of cherish your time because you're about to have no time. So I got to think of something else. So I have to think of something else. Uh,
You could say that. It's so funny.
I don't
It's
know if
so
I like
funny. I
it.
have like no empathy now for people that don't have kids that say they don't have time. I'm like, you serious? You have plenty of time. You just don't
My
realize
brother, yeah, my brother and my sister will say something, and they don't even say it anymore because the look I give them. I'm like, I
it.
don't just stop. No, I would say, and actually I heard this a lot from the pediatrician. I think I understand it now more. Is people would say, just do what you think is right. You know your daughter, you know your son, and at the beginning, I feel like I was like, that feels like a cop out. I think they're just saying that. Now I think I totally get it. And like, if you aren't ready to have kids, like, don't just do what you think is right.
Yeah.
And when you are, your instinct, no one is with them the amount that you're with them. No one knows intuitively when your baby needs to eat, when they don't. And it is, you find that I realize that when I try to teach someone else, like if a nanny's coming or my mom is coming to help for a little bit, and I try to explain something and they're just not getting, and it's so intuitive to me because I'm with them all the time. And
Right.
I think that relates to before you're a parent either. Like if you aren't sure, wait. If you are, great. Kind of, that's all you can do. Follow the instinct.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're absolutely accurate too, and I completely validate it. I think that trying to, over rationalize or process it is virtually impossible. And at the end of the day, you just need to do what's right. And sometimes your decision matrix may even change case by case, and it's okay. You should do what's right. That's great advice, man. All right, so let's switch gears here to what's the next question I usually ask? It's advice, and then, one thing you would tell yourself before you had kids, if you can go back.
The same thing. You have infinite time. No, let me think of it.
Work on
No,
Flighty more.
yeah. No, I was trying to. It's one of those things that you just can't explain to someone how much time you have.
Yeah.
You ever seen well, here's a not so great thing that happened growing up in this idyllic community I've envisioned now is as our like sex education thing, what they would do, and I guess it happened to a lot of schools, for a week, people had to carry around like a fake baby and it was just crying. It would just cry at random times or whatever. It had all these things programmed into it, and it was just
Yeah.
basically to scare the shit out of you from having sex. But it is I feel like people need to do it now. Like when you're like 25, like here, hold or whatever, hold on to this thing. And for a week, you just have something that can cry and can throw up. And it doesn't matter. You can't say like, okay, 2 minutes, let me finish the Netflix show I'm watching. And then like, you can't do any of that. You have no control. And you just don't understand it until you don't have it anymore. And it's one of those weird, like you can't get it until you don't have it type of things.
Totally. Yeah, that's hilarious. You did that at your community, huh? You guys did
Yeah,
that's
it's so
amazing.
bad. It's such a horrible tactic. It's like, oh my
It's
God.
kind of funny because I've seen them in like old 80s shows, I didn't realize that we in our generation we still had people that went through that. That's funny.
Man, Texas Bible Belt High School is
I love
something
it.
else when it comes to sex education. It's just straight fear.
Fear and punishment, apparently. It's like
Fear of
programming.
fear
Yeah.
of God and children and STDs and just straight fear.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so let's switch gears here a little bit. Do you have a favorite book?
For parenting or just all whatever?
All just everything, yeah.
Oh man, I do have a
Ideally
good one.
business, because it's really selfish. It's more just for me to build my book list. So so business if you have a favorite business book, but anything is fine, yeah.
Yeah, this might be kind of platitudey, but it's a recent kind of bestseller. Never Split the Difference.
Hmm.
Have you heard of this? So it's negotiating
Yeah, Chris
tactics
Voss.
from,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's, I don't know if I do know actually. I just came from the one person starts high, the other person starts low, and you meet in the middle. Like, what's the point? This is stupid. We
Yeah.
always meet in the middle. Um, and you just try to beat the other person over the head with, here's my list of 8 reasons why, and you only have 6, so I must be right. All that just
Yeah.
kind of like amateurish stuff. And completely not, I mean, it is incredibly helpful for negotiating, but 90% of it is just helpful for understanding other people and what they're trying to do, either with their life or in this situation, or with their role in your company, or with the deal that you're trying to do with them. I mean, I easily have saved myself $100,000+ in negotiating, but also it's more so just understanding the questions and how to approach a truly helping someone else uncover what they're trying to do. Like 99 times out of 100, they don't even know what their goal is or what's the difference between two like nuanced things and how that would affect the outcome. I, I know I never read those kind of books. I don't know how that would go on my radar. And I never read books again. And I've read it like 2 or 3 times. I just think the stories are great in and of themselves,
Yeah.
but the tactics are dense and um, super valuable. Have you read
Yeah,
it?
thank you for
Just
that.
heard about it.
No, I haven't read it yet. I've heard about it, but it's on my list, and no one's actually recommended it yet since the show started. So you're the first person to recommend it, but it has been on my list. I'm very excited about it because I saw his masterclass. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's still around. Masterclass is still around. I don't think it's growing as fast as it used to. Maybe that's why I got some. There's like I think it's plateaued, but it's still good, right? And so Chris Voss has a masterclass on there, and I watched it, and it was like amazing.
He's got a
That dude's
couple.
crazy, dude. Yeah.
He's got a couple. He did like a podcast circuit that all the authors do after the book comes
Yeah.
out. So you want to get like a taste, go look on YouTube or on podcast for one of it. And they always condense the book down into 30 minutes or something like that, so you can kind of get the gist and then dig in with the actual book.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, let's wrap it up. So the last question to bring us home: when you're not building Flighty, the best travel aid app, utility app in the market, and figuring out what dad life, girl dad life means for you in the future, what are you doing for fun? What's your downtime stuff?
I do some wake surfing. I got to get you out on
Nice.
that. Yeah, we have a boat on Lake Austin, so I hit that. Most of the time, though, is anything really housewise that I can work with my hands with. So by trade, I'm a mechanical engineer, and I just grew up, building forts and working on the house and messing with cars and all that kind of stuff, and being in the digital world all day long. When I have a break, or a lot of times too, when I need to get some real thinking done, I'll go work on something on the house, like redo the pool shed. I just did that.
Nice.
You guys should thank me.
I'll let them know that you did that. And thank you for being a
Or
customer. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Christmas lights, going too hard on Christmas lights, kitchen upgrades, stuff like that. My wife, for the first few years we had the house, she was like, you don't have to do this. Like, you can hire someone else to do it. Like, why are you're
Hmm.
going from working your ass off at work, putting the kids to bed, and then at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, you're doing home improvement stuff. Like, just stop, calm down. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, you don't understand. Like, this is me relaxing.
Yeah.
I'm unwinding and doing stuff with my hands. So it's a nice realization for both of us. Like, it took me a while to realize that's what I was actually doing.
Oh,
But that's what I
wow.
do. Anything messing with my hands, working on
That's
stuff.
awesome. That's really cool, man. I probably should pick up something. I should figure that out for myself as well too, because I've been struggling trying to figure out what my downtime activities. It's usually playing video games, and I don't really do that anymore because I just don't have time. Maybe I should
Yeah.
figure that out if that's what I need to do. That's awesome, man. Hey, Ryan, this has been really awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me about dad life and your business. And it's really good to catch up, brother.
Good to see you too, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for doing this.
Cheers.